Welcome everyone to another Ghosts of Scotland. I am your host, Will. Unlike Glasgow and Edinburgh, Paisley has got something to offer. Like Glasgow and Edinburgh, those stories that cover the Edinburgh vaults, to Edinburgh Castle, to Glasgow's ancient architecture like Glasgow Cathedral, Paisley's no different. Tonight we're going to look at some venues that I personally looked into, researched, trying to find out if there's anything to do with the paranormal within these buildings. So with that, join me as we tour Paisley with the Ghosts of Scotland, Paranormal Paisley. One of the most famous buildings in Paisley is none other than the Paisley Abbey. Built in the 6th century, much of the original building was destroyed in 1307, with further damage in the 16th century with the collapse of the centre tower. At the end of the 19th century and early 20th, work began on the building to restore it to its former glory, with more restoration work on the Abbey in 2010. So why does this place have some stories? Well, the history of the building dating back to the 6th century, with supposed sightings of monks walking down the aisles in the Abbey. Also with disembodied voices being heard within the location as well. Understandably, the Abbey doesn't want to comment on this matter, as it's still an active place of worship and that must be respected. Any documented evidence is hard to come by with regarding the Abbey, but that hasn't stopped people in believing when visiting this place, going round Paisley or any of the other haunted locations in Scotland. Sometimes the stories are just as good. Paisley Abbey was a wonderful building to film in. Looking back and some of the research I found out about it, there is no documented evidence whatsoever, like I said, about any hauntings whatsoever. They don't really let anybody in to film when it comes to ghost hunts. They look at it as a taboo. Like I said, it is an active place of worship, so you have to respect that. And of course, they wouldn't like to talk about that. But it hasn't stopped people asking them, can they film to do research or whatever happens in there regarding the paranormal. My next building, however, is steeped in paranormal backlore. And finally, the old RAI Hospital. Built in May 1897, this 150 bed, 10 private room building helped take care of the people of Paisley until it officially closed its doors in 2008. Within its 111-year operation, this building acted as a care home for the elderly and other parts of the ground made into housing. Since its closure, the building has started to deteriorate and was placed on the Building Risk Register for Scotland in 2010. But that hasn't stopped urban explorers investigating the building. With the curiosity of people and the history of the building, this hasn't stopped people ghost hunting. This stems from stories from nurses claiming they heard unexplained footsteps, whispering when no one was there, and beds moving on their own. But some stories go further, with claims of a black shadow dragging a body bag to a doctor hanging himself in a private room on the top floor. But there's no evidence of this whatsoever. But that hasn't stopped urban explorers going into the building and find out what they can find, if anything, and capture it on camera. The old RAI Hospital is something that has to be seen just from the outside. It does give that ominous feeling just looking at it. And for my short time being there, it was incredible. Unfortunately on that day I couldn't get into film. It is a condemned building. But maybe one day I will return there to do a ghost adventure. But until then, that's some of the most haunted places in Paisley. Maybe we will come back one day and revisit these areas, but now it's off to Edinburgh as I look into the Edinburgh vaults. As we leave Paisley behind and continue with the Ghosts of Scotland. I've been your host Will, see you next time.